Would you please introduce this author, the author of the paper that you chose, and tell us something about her?
Yeah, sure. So I first came across Sarah Bachelard in 2017 when I went to a conference in Australia, in Brisbane, and she presented one of the papers there, which really was just talking about the importance of contemplative practice within a school context. And I was very impressed with what she said, but also the way in which she said it, you know, that sense of deep kind of calm about her and thoughtfulness, which I really appreciated. And then a few years ago, 2017 I think it was, I went to a retreat at Waikato University, the New Zealand Community of Christian Meditation, and Sarah Bachelard was the keynote presenter there. And actually had the opportunity to have a conversation with her. Sarah Bachelard is an ordained Anglican priest, and she's the leader of a congregation in Canberra called Benedictus Contemplative Church. So it was great hearing at this retreat about how that church is organised and what they do there. And during the course of the retreat, she gave 4 keynote addresses, and this paper was the first of those addresses, and it kind of set the scene for the other addresses that she gave.
The paper is called Contemplation and the Active Life. Why did you choose this paper for our olive branch discussion? Well,
actually one of the first things was that it's not that long. And that's kind of, you know, with our group, it is quite good, isn't it, to have something that's, you know, reasonably brief in terms of how we're doing this work together as a group. So that was a factor in it. But also, I think she kind of sets the scene very nicely for the value of contemplative practice, and sets it, I think, within a nice theological framework as well.
What are some of the main points that she makes in this paper?
Well, she talks about the importance of contemplative practice as a way of living, I guess, into the fullness of who we can be. And in this paper she sets out a framework that she attributes to Richard Rohr, but I've also heard Father Thomas Keating talk about this as well, and that, this idea of the programs for happiness that we all tend to live into in the Western world anyway, and this these 3 things around first survival and security, secondly power and control, and thirdly affection and approval, and that we, in some way or other, we might be drawn more to one of those 3, or there might be ways in which we kind of buy into them at various stages and times, and that we see the meaning of our life as being defined by those 3 programs for happiness, and that the practice of contemplation, practices of silence and stillness and solitude, actually help us to detach from our addiction to those 3 programs for happiness, and that idea of practices that help us to let go and to go deeper, and to trust that actually we are loved for who we are, and not for, you know, our ability to have power and control, or survival and security, or approval and affection, that those are not the things that need to define us. And so this slow, steady practice of contemplation is the place in which we're able to go deeper and find that fuller way of living.
I should know the answer to this because I've read the paper, but does Sarah Bachelard contrast contemplation with being active in the world, or is there any contrast between contemplation and the life of, for example, social engagement?
Yeah, so I think she would say that we are called to be actively involved in the world, but we do it from a place not of busyness and freneticism and agitation, that our ability to be actively involved in the world comes out from that deeper place of contemplative practice that enables us then and energises us to be involved in the world from that place of deep calm and stillness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Since you've read the paper and presented it or brought it to us, have you found any ideas have been particularly useful or memorable in the course of your life and work?
I think for me it's been helpful in terms of thinking about those what are called programs for happiness and the kind of the recognition of that and how that works in my life and that thing of, oh, there I go again, wanting people to like me, and doing what I can for them to like me, and that I think the recognition of how those things are at work is part of the awareness that comes from contemplative practice and that sense of, actually, I don't need to do that. I mean, I can let go of that. And so I think her and, the work of other people she references, like Richard Raw and Rowan Williams and so on, I think they offer a great deal to us in helping us to recognise some of those patterns and what it is that we might be being called to into deeper places. So I found that really helpful.
A good paper, do you think? Would you recommend it to others?
Yeah.
And if so, to whom?
Well, this particular paper is the first of 4, and she goes on to talk about some other practices or the value of contemplative practice in regards to intercession and also in discernment. And so as a set, I think, they are really useful. Interesting to think about who would they be useful for. I mean, I guess I'd want everyone to kind of think about this kind of thing and reflect on what that might look like in their life. So, anyone interested in going a bit deeper, I would recommend it to.
Thank you very much, Sharon.